From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. Do you want free advice? Visit podtherapy.net or tweet to us at podtherapyguys to submit questions to the show. On today's show, we will be talking about self-improvement for the new year and answering questions about panic attacks, relationships and dating, and what feelings to expect after therapy. And now, broadcasting from Level 9 Studios, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy. All right. So, Jim, it's 2018.
Happy New Year.
Yay.
Happy New Year.
We made it.
We made it. We made a new podcast. We literally renamed it on the way here. We're in business. we're ready to go. Talk about new resolutions. Our new resolution is do this podcast, and we are following through. So, yeah, this is us living it out.
Yeah. Anytime you rename a podcast on the way to record it, there's no way that this won't fail.
No. We are so consistent, and it's the foundations are just laid in concrete. It's wet concrete.
We're good.
Yeah,
We're good.
It's drying right now.
This is going to be good.
Very excited for the new year.
We are starting a podcast, but why? So we are two professional helpers who want to start a community of support for the average person. We want to remove some of the fear associated with mental and behavioral health. We want to be a resource for people needing a boost of support, or for people considering going into therapy.
So the concept of pod therapy, just kind of writ large, is to introduce the general public to this idea that, hey, this is what it sounds like to talk to a therapist. You're listening to them. We are literally therapists. This is what we do for a living. This is our profession. And this is us getting in front of the mics, taking real human beings, real questions, trying to provide some honest, good feedback, have some laughs along the way because that's real life, and just be authentic. And so, folks, our hope is that when you engage us here at Pod Therapy, that you're walking away and feeling like, you know what, I got something from those guys, and I have something to pass on to the next person that needs some help in my life.
Absolutely. So let's do some introduction. Dr. Jobin, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, I love talking about me, Nick. I'm Dr. Jim Jobin. My doctorate is in behavioral health from Arizona State University. My master's is in marriage and family therapy, and my bachelor's is in religion. So I kind of come at it from a lot of different angles. I'm a psychotherapist here in Las Vegas, been here for 25 years, work at a rehab, and these days I help folks try to get off alcohol and drugs.
Excellent. And I am Nick Tangeman from the Midwest, went to the University of Northern Iowa, got my bachelor's in psychology, master's degree in social work. I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. My focus is on compulsive behaviors such as addictions. I also have some background and experience working in process addictions such as gambling, internet addiction, social media, video game. Yes.
And sex addiction.
I don't have any expertise or background in sex addiction.
Fine. This is Vegas.
Yeah.
We all kind of have an expertise in sex addiction.
All right, so let's get into some questions. Before we get started, we want to be very clear. We are not a replacement for therapy. Our best hope is to provide support, challenge some beliefs, and help each individual get started on their path towards finding a solution. Yes, we are a therapist. No, we are not your therapist. The advice and feedback we give is therapeutic and hopefully useful, but we strongly encourage you to look up a therapist in your area. Tell them that Nick and Jim sent you.
Yeah, they'll give you a discount. Well, no, but...
Not yet.
They'll give you a free mint in the office, I think.
All right. So first question we have is about panic attacks. So this one's pretty interesting. This comes to us from subreddit R Therapy. So the Reddit user asks, I have panic attacks about death and dying. I have been having them since I was around 8 or 9 when I first grasped the concept of death. There isn't anything that is a specific trigger for these attacks. The only way I have for fixing it, whenever it happens, is to feel pain. Not like cutting wrists or anything like that. I just slap my face a couple times, and I take a deep breath. But I'm just wondering if there are other ways to help whenever I get one. Any help would be appreciated.
Wow. Yeah, that's really common. Yeah. First blush on that, Nick, whenever you hear he's slapping his face, it's interesting, right? Because that's not that bad of an idea. I mean, I don't like self-harm as a general concept, but we've seen that before, right? To stop an intrusive thought.
Yes. I've Another common one that we hear a lot is snapping a rubber band on your
Rubber
wrist.
bands, yeah.
Right. So that's not really something completely unheard of.
No.
I don't see a whole lot of people slapping themselves across the face necessarily, but that kind of distraction is actually a grounding technique. It's kind of meant to bring you back into the present moment.
Yeah.
As a bit of a distraction. So what do you think? What other suggestions might you have for this individual?
I think the first thing we have to start off with is what is panic, right? And what is anxiety? So if you're listening to this, just know this. Anxiety and panic is the number one mental illness in America currently. It is the most frequent thing I think I've ever treated, and we see it everywhere. Even in rehab, we see it very normally associated with using drugs and alcohol as a way to sort of deal with these symptoms. So first off, I'm glad this person's not being self-destructive. I think that that's really good. It definitely can head that way if it's not dealt with properly. So the first thing I think we need to talk about, though, Nick, is what is anxiety, right? And we go through that cycle of cognitive behavioral therapy, which you and I have filled up many a whiteboard trying to explain it to our patients, sort of that chain reaction of how this goes. And so maybe we can piggyback off of each other, but the very first thing that happens that leads to the anxiety experience is that triggering event. So something happens in life. Now, it's unfortunate because we don't have any control over that unless you're secretly an omnipotent God who can control your fate. The car that's going to hit that red light and run right through it and cut you off in traffic is going to scare you, and it's going to happen suddenly and explosively, and you don't have control over that. But that in and of itself doesn't necessarily create the anxiety. So the first step in that domino is the event that happens, the triggering event. This is something a patient has no control over, but that leads to the next thing in the chain.
Automatic thought.
Automatic thoughts.
What does that event mean to me? So I guess if we're looking at this from the perspective of death, maybe that's something that this individual could explore a little bit further in therapy is what does death mean to this person?
Yeah, I think so. And also, I think one thing that we come back to a lot with folks that have anxiety and panic attacks, so we can't control the events that are going to happen, right? You're going to see a commercial that talks about cancer. It's going to scare you. You're going to start to feel that panic and anxiety. It's going to sit with you. The thing that we want to challenge in therapy is this a feeling or is this a fact? Can we put the thought, the feeling, the automatic thing that's popping into your head, can we put that on trial? And if we can do that, we can kind of suss out the reality of it. What is something that is fictional that I'm adding to this, that comes from my meaning that I give to it? And what is the actual fact on the ground? So a lot of people that have this kind of panic will say, I had some chest pain on the way to work, and oh my gosh, I think I'm having a heart attack. And now I'm feedback looping, right? Because my brain is telling me I think I'm having a heart attack. Now my pulse is raising, so now I feel my heart thumping in my throat, and oh, that verifies it. I must really be having a heart attack. And now it's this feedback loop that's getting out of control because they're not interrupting the exchange between belief and what's happening, and it's becoming this cycle that gets out of control. And that's what actually leads to the panic attack effect whenever the sympathetic nervous system enacts over the parasympathetic nervous system, and you go into that fight or flight mode where you believe that you're going to die or you have to do something abruptly, and that's the experience of panic and anxiety.
Yeah, so essentially you start out with anxiety, and then you start having anxiety about
your anxiety. Yeah, and that's the feedback loop, right? And that's when it comes into full-blown panic.
So if I understand you correctly, Jim, what we're talking about here is we understand the fact that we are going to have the anxiety to start with. What you're talking about is disrupting that system of wrapping it around and stacking anxiety on top of anxiety.
Exactly.
So what he's doing essentially already is he has already started some coping mechanism to try to disrupt that process. That is with the essentially slapping himself and feeling pain.
Yeah, which is not bad, guys. So I don't want to see you permanently injure yourself, right? But Nick and I will allow you to slap a rubber band on your wrist, throw some cold water on your face, step on your toe, pinch yourself. Ice cubes. I've seen that. I've seen people pinch themselves. I've seen people slap themselves. I think that that's proper, that's fine, because what you're doing is you're interrupting the thought cycle, right? You're grabbing the wheel of your brain and directing it in a new direction. The user also says that he does deep breaths. I think that's helpful. I think meditative and here and now kind of thinking is useful. But the most important thing you can do in the middle of a panic attack, in the middle of anxiety, is to arrest the thinking itself and get yourself into a place where you can step out of it and kind of watch your own thinking like a movie on a screen and sort of analyze that. So to the user, I think he's doing everything right. I like that he's slapping himself. I mean, it sounds terrible. My therapist told me to slap myself. Listen, I'm okay with it. Don't slap other people. Slap yourself, open-handed.
And I think what we would look at, with this individual, that's fine. We're using, that's a distraction technique. There's a bunch of other ways that you can do that. We've listed some of them. There's also other things that we can do as far as grounding techniques. Anything that's going to activate a different part of the brain is going to be helpful. Anything that requires really complex thought. Doing some like Sudoku puzzles.
Yes.
I've had clients do that where, it forces them to use a different part of the brain that is for analytical thought.
Yes.
Naming as many colors in the room as you possibly can.
Yes.
Saying the alphabet backwards.
Naming the state capitals, doing your times tables. So full disclosure, I have experienced generalized anxiety disorder myself, and those are all tricks that I've used. Times tables, naming the state capitals, looking down at the floor, counting how many objects in the room, counting how many tiles are on the floor, counting how many people I talked to today, thinking about the last email I sent, thinking about the last text I sent, trying to remember what it said. Anything that engages a different part of your brain actually distracts from the from the sympathetic nervous system response that's causing you to go into a full-blown panic. Now, people get angry when I teach them that because they go, well, that's cheating. I want you to do therapy. I want you to make sure this never happens again. I don't think we can do that. Right. I still, to this day, have anxious responses to life events that happen. The difference is I don't go into a panic attack. So I've changed the outcome, but the initial thing is going to be the same. Now we use all these brain hacks to kind of get ourselves some distance from that actual reaction of a panic attack.
Right.
Which he should totally do. Cheat.
Absolutely.
Brain hack your way out of it, buddy. I think that you're doing everything right. Add some more tools to the toolkit. Don't forget to question those assumptions, those feelings you have that are probably not facts. Question them. Ask yourself, where is the evidence for this thing that I believe? I believe I am on my way to death's door. Where's the hard evidence? And I like to imagine Judge Judy like sitting there waiting for me to give her my evidence. And I'm like, well, Your Honor, I feel pain in my stomach. And I could just see her like being mean and like laughing at me and going, come on, that's ridiculous. Like, get out of the court.
See, I think this says a lot about how you and I grew up because I don't think of Judge Judy. I think of Sergeant Friday.
Oh, wow. From Dragnet?
Yeah. Just the facts, ma'am.
Just the facts.
Just the facts.
Just the facts, ma'am. Joe Friday. Okay. So I want you to imagine Joe Friday from Dragnet. And if you're thinking, who is that? Hey, great question, buddy. Great question. Or we could go with Judge Judy, who's still on television, Nick, and is the highest paid woman in television.
You don't mess with the classics.
You don't mess with the classics. You can go to Nick at Night and see what Dragnet's doing. Dragnet Therapy, brought to you by Pod Therapy.
All right. Our next one. This one's interesting. I just found out my boyfriend has been cheating on and manipulating me for 2 years. This one also is coming to us from a subreddit, r/advice. The Reddit user WhoPlats says, so I recently found out that my boyfriend and first love, who claimed to love me and want to spend the rest of his life with me, is actually a sociopathic narcissist.
Whoa, big words.
Yeah. Let's see. Having sex and keeping in contact with multiple girls. Over the 2 years we've been together, he convinced me I was crazy, that I'm going insane whenever I would be suspicious, my intuition telling me otherwise. I lost myself in those last years, starting to fall into a deep depression, fearing that I was actually crazy, that I was making stuff up in my head. When I tell you that he is good at lying, I mean he is probably one of the best. I already broke up with him after I found out, all while he was still trying to lie his way out of it. I just need to know how to rid this anger because I keep thinking he did this to me, he did this to his ex. He's going to forget about me and find another innocent heart and tear it to shreds. I want him to suffer as much as I have. I don't want him to pretend and lie all over again, yet get away with it. I don't want to be petty, but I feel such rage. Anyone have advice to either destroy his life, he works in the military, or just calm myself down? I can't help feeling this anger in my heart. That's intense.
That is very intense.
So right off the bat, I'll kind of explain where my mind went right away reading this. This is something I have a little personal history with as well and can kind of relate to.
Relate?
I can definitely relate to the need for justice.
How about the desire for justice, right? Because she's saying, hey, can you help me destroy his life?
Right.
As therapists, as a general rule, no. We will not help you with
Yes. Thank you for correcting me, because there's a big difference between the need for justice and the desire for justice.
Yeah, you will survive without justice.
Yes.
Yeah, but you definitely want it, and you're justified in wanting that.
Absolutely.
That's very authentic.
Yes, that want is very authentic. What do you think, Jim?
First thing I notice in this is the brokenheartedness is real, and I think that those feelings are still extremely raw. She is still in a place where she is thinking, A, how do I hurt him back? B, how do I protect somebody else? And C, I was made to believe that I'm crazy, and I'm not crazy. So clearly she's still in a place of like grieving. I think that the explosion has kind of essentially happened in her heart. And before she makes any decisions whatsoever, I think she just needs to hold down for a minute and let those feelings pass. Like a storm, she kind of needs to make that pass. And Nick, I think that you mentioned, that you can relate to some of this. The most dangerous person in your life is you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could overreact to this and cause more trouble.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that I can't speak for other people, but the thing that helped me was coming to the realization that justice was not my job.
Yes.
It doesn't fall on me to make the world right again.
Yes.
What falls on me is me taking care of me.
Yes.
And that's it. That would be one of the things that I would really work with this individual on and help them get to that point where it no longer is about trying to destroy that person's life, because even if that was possible and they were to do it, that doesn't take away hurt.
Yes.
It doesn't.
Right.
It's not going to make that person feel any better. Exactly. It just means that somebody else is now down at my level.
Yeah, hating that person and wanting that revenge is that old saying of drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies.
Right.
And right now she's kind of guzzling that poison of resentment and hatred and anger. And that's okay to an extent. I think that's very authentic. But I would kind of try to get her directed inwardly, right? So if I were her therapist, I'd be sitting her down and saying, hey, you've definitely been through something. You are certainly the victim, right? We don't have to sit here and referee this fight. It's clearly this person was wrong and you're in the right. Now let's think about solutions, right? Let's not think about what's right and wrong. Let's think about what's helpful and unhelpful. Is it helpful to you to try to sabotage this man's career or post all over the internet and make sure that the next girl knows that, he was a shady guy? Probably not. Is it helpful to you? Is it going to make you heal faster or move forward for you to somehow let the world know about this injustice or seek some kind of revenge? Probably not. And so I think you get to be selfish right now and just focus on yourself and try to figure out, okay, who am I? What has occurred to me? How have I been victimized? And how can I start to focus inwardly and keep my side of the street clean?
Absolutely. I think it starts with healing yourself. And I don't know where that would be for this individual. I think that's kind of up to her to figure out, where does that journey start for her? Utilizing your support system, who's in your social group, who's going to be helpful and supportive, be around them, spend a lot of quality time with them, get involved in activities, meet new people.
Yes.
Yes. One of the greatest things I've ever come across is, I'm going to do a little commercial here. Maybe we can get them.
Are we giving a commercial shout out?
Yeah. Maybe we'll get them as an advertiser later. But Meetup.
Yeah. Please sponsor us, Meetup.
It is a great way if you're ending a relationship and you just need to be out and active. Yes. Going on Meetup, and there's a group for anything.
Oh yeah, well, especially out here.
Right.
I have written more prescriptions for Meetup.com than anything else. Yeah. I just want people to go look that up.
Yeah.
But no, that's absolutely true. And to this Reddit user, listen, you've been a victim. Okay, something terrible has happened to you. This, if you're not careful, can become an acidic and corrosive part of your character. If you're not careful, this resentment can become part of you for your next relationship. This will become the baggage that you can carry around for the rest of your life. And one of the symptoms of this in the next relationship will be this thing that we call hypervigilance. So I see a little bit about this in your question. You say, I became searching and thinking I was crazy and looking everywhere, and he would assure me that I'm nuts and it's not real. Okay, but what behavior that you were beginning to develop in this relationship is something called hypervigilance, becoming very aware, checking text messages, checking the email, checking the browser history, figuring out where he was, double-checking stories, trying to look for the lie. That is itself a very toxic relationship, and the fact that you started having to do that to survive would have indicated to us that this is already not going anywhere, and this is a relationship probably needs to end. One of the most destructive things that this person can give you that you might accidentally bring with you into your next relationship is hypervigilance and being very scared and not allowing yourself to trust again. And you'll actually destroy your next relationship if you're not careful. So you have got some self-work to do so that you can heal from this properly and step into the new relationship with eyes wide open, sure, but also in a trusting way where you're not punishing the next person for the sins of the past.
Absolutely. Agreed. Yeah, I think, the biggest thing for me, again, is to go back to the idea that your happiness is independent of his happiness.
Yes.
If I'm the type of person, I don't necessarily believe in a higher power. I don't really buy into the idea of the universe, and I don't really buy into karma. Right. But I do kind of have a sense that overall there is justice in the world, simply because whether it's an outside entity that will later on punish him for his transgressions, or if it's just simply the fact that this is his behavior and his behavior will catch up to him and will have consequences in life. What will happen to him will happen, regardless of what you are doing about yourself. You can be happy even if he's not happy. You can be happy even if he is happy. If he lives the rest of his life just being happy and comes across a whole bunch of money and,
right.
and has women all over the place.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you can't be happy.
Those are two different things. And I think the other thing that they need to think about here is the idea that this person has a lot of mental real estate in your head right now. Yes. This person is living rent-free in your brain. And I think you kind of need to start a divorcing process where you're kind of taking a scalpel, metaphorically, and sort of excising them from your world. And that begins in social media. It begins in the amount of minutes in your day that you kind of give to them. It begins even in your revenge thinking. This person is living rent-free in your head, and I think you kind of need to evict them. And I think what Nick said is absolutely right. You can desire justice. That's fair. Let me tell you something. After doing this for a really long time, working with a lot of patients, I can tell you this. Our character flaws, our failings, always, 100% of the time, catch up to us because they are dysfunctional. They don't fit fluidly in society. They are toxic. They are unhealthy. And eventually, that comes back to us. Even if it's because this guy keeps losing good relationships because he cannot stay stable in them, that will eventually come back to haunt him, and it will be something that he regrets. And that happens as sure as the sun is going to rise in the east. I can tell you 100% of the time character flaws catch up to us, and whether we're aware of it or not, we suffer because of them.
Yep, absolutely.
Good question.
Right. Yeah, hope that helps.
Love you, girl.
Yep, take care of you.
Yep, and
start
go see
your
a therapist.
Yep.
Tell them Nick and Jim sent you. They'll give you a mint.
Yep, that means a lot. All right. Our next question. When is it time to talk about becoming boyfriend and girlfriend? When do you know you're going from dating into a relationship? So this question also submitted through Reddit r/dating advice. The user writes, I find it so difficult. I really like this girl. I've been seeing her for 4 weeks. We've met quite frequently. She always seems keen on meeting me when I ask. However, I am mostly the one texting first and taking initiative to meet up. This makes me doubt how she sees me. We haven't had sex yet, but last dates we made out and cuddled a lot. I kiss her when I drive her home. Again, I'm always the one initiating kissing as well. I've told her I like spending time with her, and she said the same. I really like this girl and I want her to be my girlfriend, but I'm not sure how to progress this into a relationship. Should I ask her specifically what she thinks of me and what she wants us to be? I feel like this is really risky and I might come off as a bit desperate, especially scared since I am the one initiating most everything and maybe she doesn't like me as much as I do. I want to get to that part where I can kiss her when I meet her and not until I man up enough later in the date. But I'm scared of doing mistakes. I'm 25 years old. She just turned 22. We met through Tinder. I read this earlier, and I'm interested, Jim, to hear your take on this because there's two ways of approaching this, and I think I know what your advice is going to be, and I think I might have different advice.
Oh, we depart.
I hope so. I hope so. We can't always be on the same page.
I feel like this was destined to happen. All right, so what I hear this guy saying is that he suspects he has more capital in this relationship than she does, right? So he's more invested than she is. And I think that, for me, is the very first thing that I'm interested in, is he feels overexposed. He feels like he's put himself too far out there and he's not being matched dollar for dollar. If that's a feeling that seems to be coming through here, I'd start there and give yourself permission to reel yourself back in a little bit. Don't be vindictive. Don't be mean. A lot of guys make that mistake where they kind of feel like they were put out there too quickly. They feel vulnerable. Now they lash out and they, act dumb. Don't do that, fella. Reel it back in a little bit, though. Give yourself permission to kind of put up the wall slightly, create a little bit of a fence and see if she wants to knock on that door, right? Create some space. Don't respond on that text message. Let her kind of give you some feedback first. That would be my first drop of advice. My second piece would be, I like what he said, where he said, should I talk to her about this? Yep. Yes, you should. I think that you should sit her down and say, hey, I feel like maybe I'm more interested in you than you are me. I just wanted to get a reading from you. How do you think we're doing? Are you open to an exclusive relationship? Is that something you want right now? Talk about it. I think a lot of us tiptoe around these things because we're scared of what the answer will be. That doesn't change the answer that's out there, though, right? So go ahead and call that answer onto the table. Get it in front of you. I think you'd rather know. And it sounds like you want a relationship. If that's not where her head's at, she might tell you, hey, listen, I'm just kind of coasting along until I find another thing. I'm not looking for anything exclusive. Great. I'm glad you now know that. I think that you should go back to Tinder or another app. And I think that you should shop around and find somebody that's on the same wavelength. But don't be afraid to clarify values and a plan with somebody that you're romantically interested in. I think there's no wrong time to have forward-looking conversations as long as you don't pretend like the thing is much bigger than it really is. If you start talking about marriage or ask them, hey, what do you want to name our first kid? It's the second date.
Right.
Yeah, that's registering pretty high in the creepy meter. But hey, buddy, I think from what you've shared, I think it's entirely appropriate for you to approach it and have an honest conversation. Now, Nick's going to tell you to do something completely different, I think. I don't know.
No.
No. We did agree.
I'm surprised.
What did you think I was going to say?
No.
Dumper?
Here's
no. Dumper.
No.
She's crazy.
No. Okay, here's the thing we need to consider. 4 weeks. We don't really know what that looks like if that may be 1 week a date.
You need to...
Or 1 date a week.
4 weeks in dog years is a long time. And so you got to think about that. You put that through the filter.
Sure. Of course that's relevant. Yeah. No, but... regardless of the time frame, I guess the common, I think, standard dating advice that he would receive if he were to go to YouTube and look up dating advice or listen to an inferior podcast than what we have here.
All of them.
We're very upper crust here.
Yeah. Sponsor us, meetup.com.
Right. But I think the standard dating advice that a lot of guys get is don't pursue.
Oh.
Don't play it cool.
Yeah.
Right? Step back and let her chase you, because if you chase her too much, then she becomes disinterested and she's going to kind of fade out.
That was exactly my advice.
I know. I was being nice.
You're saying that that's not what he should do?
Yes.
He should pursue her harder?
No.
Should he stand in front of her house with a boombox on his shoulders and scream? I think that's what Nick wants you to do. Go put on a trench coat.
No.
Go watch a John Cusack movie.
Okay, because I know that that is very common dating advice. Here's my advice. Be you.
Oh.
Just be you. Just be open, and if this is something that's bothering you and this is something that you're concerned about, you can express it. Feel fine to express it. Here's what I see a lot of people do in dating, and I think that it works temporarily, but not over a long period of time. What they do is they try to be somebody they're not, and they try to play games, and they try to, I'm going to do this because it's going to get this certain response from this female who I'm interested in.
Oh, I see.
And women do the same thing. I'm going to do this because I want to appear mysterious, and I want to do that.
It's manipulative.
Well, not just that, but okay, will it work? Maybe,
but it's
for the short time.
Right.
We all regress towards the mean.
Right.
We always go back to our normal way of life. I think the people who are successful in dating and find somebody who they really connect with are people who are just genuine. They are who they are. And those, you establish long-term relationships in that sense. Because, I can play these games. I can manipulate this person. I can be mysterious. I can get her to chase me. But then we're now 5 months into this, and now I'm regressing back to how I usually am.
Right. When does the real you come out?
Right. Yeah. If she's not attracted to who I really am now, she's not going to be attracted to who I really am 6 months from now.
All right. I see where you're going with this. All right, listeners. This is where we're drawing lines in the sand. I want you on Team Jim. Okay. Let me make my argument about why that's not going to work. If that's the case, Nick, don't dress up for your first date. Just come in sweatpants and a football jersey. Don't put on cologne. Don't shave. Don't try. Don't pay for the meal. Don't do anything that's abnormal. My argument is, in order to get, I think in the intricate and complicated psychological thing that is human courtship and mating rituals, I think that there's a lot of back and forth, and I think you kind of have to augment and falsify some things. Falsify sounds bad, but I guess I'm already killing myself here. They're switching over to Team Nick. I believe that we already sort of put forward the best version of ourselves, and I think that we artfully try to navigate those early waters. Because here's my argument. Okay. The nature of this relationship is fundamentally changing every day of those 4 weeks of that first month. Who you're dating or who you're with in a year, you behave differently with than you do on day 5. If you approach the girl that you've been on 2 dates with the same intimacy and familiarity as you would a year and a half in, because that's the real you, you're going to creep her out. And she's going to go, hey, I don't want to meet your parents. Or, hey, I don't want to come to your house for Christmas. Or you're like, hey, don't leave your toothbrush at my house or whatever. And so I think that there's like a propriety of distance and boundaries that you're allowed to sort of grow into. So my recommendation to him is explore that distance, explore those boundaries, because if that could be a female signal that you are coming on too strong. If she's pulling back and being quiet and she's not being very, affectionate towards you, or she seems to not be very receptive, or she's cold, I think you need to read that, because that could be her signaling, dude, you're trying too hard. Like, I'm not as invested in this as you are. You're taking it too seriously. What if he goes out and he says, hey, I want you to be my girlfriend. She's like, I've kind of been stepping away from this, and you haven't picked up on the signal. So join Team Jim, because you won't get your heart broken, and you'll be the Fonz. That's what I want everybody to be. I want you to be the Fonz, wear a leather jacket, and don't get your heart broken.
Okay, I also want him to wear a leather jacket.
Oh, okay, all right.
And dress up for first dates,
okay.
Obviously.
Okay.
But point taken. I think I can concede a little bit of my point. I think I think the somewhere in the middle.
It's okay.
Is a good
Come
thing.
over here to Team Jim.
No,
come on over. There's plenty of space.
That will never happen.
You can do it.
But
it's an open chair.
Yeah. But no, I do think, obviously, yes, you're going to put your best foot forward. And yes, if you're picking up on signals, of course, you can kind of adjust a little bit to kind of meet this person where they're at. My main point is, don't lose sight of yourself. Don't be somebody you're not. Be you.
Be authentic, but read the game, man. He's reading Blitz, and he's saying, like, is now the time to go for it? And I'm like, no, she's clearly pulling away. You need to investigate. Like, and I think that you need to, like, get up to the snap count here and get down to 1 and see if they jump the line. Like, these are a lot of sports metaphors. We just lost 100% of our female listeners. I apologize. My point is, I think you need to read the situation carefully. If she seems like she's pulling back, I think you need to investigate that. I would not advise now's the time to go for it. Like, I don't see that action on the field, so I don't know, but I see your point. Like, don't be fake and start deciding to pretend like you're somebody less caring than you really are, or like that you're not invested in this and pretending like you don't care and you're just like, cavalier about the whole thing. If that's not authentically you, you're going to misrepresent yourself. And if she does fall for you, she fell in love or became attracted to a very fake or caricature version of you. Right. And now you have to undo that over time. And that's actually really good advice. I'm going to come over to Team Nick a little bit here because when I used to do marriage therapy, that was a very common thread, was the person that was represented during the dating time was fundamentally different than the person who shows up in the marriage later on when you're trying to like budget and
right.
like live your life and decide which kind of cereal to buy. Like right. That's when it gets real. And there's a huge misrepresentation that happens because we're afraid of losing the relationship. But I think your point is it's better to just go ahead and just get honest now because this is going to happen later and it's going to hurt more. So just come out now and find out if it's a good match.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll come over to Team Nick.
Okay.
Right.
So we found some middle ground.
Yeah, I think we did.
Good.
Yep. And hey guys, just a reminder, if you thought of a question during this podcast that you'd like us to take a look at, you can go ahead and tweet that to @PodTherapyGuys or come down to our website, podtherapy.net. Submit your questions to us. We'll read it live on the show and we'll give you our best answer.
Okay, that's all the time that we've got for this week's session, but remember that pod therapy isn't something you should keep to yourself. Help us reach others by sharing this episode and help the people in your life by checking in on them and offering an open ear. You never know whose life might be changed by simply being available. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
And this has been Pod Therapy. Thanks, and we'll see you for your next appointment next week.